Good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, January 26, 2020, 21, excuse me. So I want to jump back into chapter one of The Untethered Soul. We were talking last week about the voice in your head that's constantly going on. And we ended with this. In fact, your thoughts have far less impact on this world than you would like to think. If you're willing to be objective and watch all of your thoughts, you will see that the vast majority of them have no relevance. They have no effect on anything or anybody except you. They are simply making you feel better or worse about what is going on now, what has gone on in the past, and what might go on in the future. If you spend your time hoping that it doesn't rain tomorrow, you are wasting your time. Your thoughts don't change the rain. Your thoughts don't change much of anything. You will someday come to see that. There is no use for that incessant internal chatter. And there's no reason to constantly attempt to figure everything out. Eventually, you will see that the real cause of problems is not life itself, it's the commotion the mind makes about life that really causes problems. So, again, most of the problems that you're worried about are self made. Now, this raises a serious question. If so much of what the voice says is meaningless and unnecessary, then why does it even exist? The secret to answering this question lies in the understanding why it says what it says when it says it. For example, in some cases, the mental voice talks for the same reason that a tea kettle whistles. That is, there's a buildup of energy inside that needs to be released. If you watch objectively, you will see that when there's a buildup of nervous, fearful, or desire based energies inside, the voice becomes extremely active. This is easy to see when you are angry with someone and you feel like telling them off. Just watch how many times the inner voice tells them off before you even see them. When energy builds up inside, you want to do something about it. That voice talks because you're not okay inside, and talking releases energy. You will notice, however, that when you're not particularly bothered by something, it still talks. When you're walking down the street, it says things like, "Look at that dog. It's a Labrador. Hey, there's another dog in that car. He looks a lot like my first dog, Shadow. Whoa, there's an old Oldsmobile. It's got Alaska plates. You don't see many of those down here." This voice is actually narrating the world for you. But why do you need to do this? You already see what's happening outside. How does it help to repeat it to yourself through the mental voice? You should examine this very closely. With a simple glance, you instantly take in the tremendous detail of whatever you're looking at. If you see a tree, you effortlessly see the branches, the leaves, the flowering buds. Why then do you have to verbalize what you have already seen? Look at that dogwood. The green leaves are so beautiful against the white flowers. Look how many flowers there are. Wow. it's all so full. What you'll see if you study this carefully is that the narration makes you feel more comfortable with the world around you. Like backseat driving, it makes you feel as though things are more in your control. You actually feel like you have some relationship with them. So let me stop for a second. How many of you are guilty of backseat driving? Anyone? And why do you do that?
Because people can't drive.
Why do you do that?
Feeling of being in control.
It makes you feel better. You're not driving. However, commenting on how the other person is driving, somehow that's an attempt to make yourself feel better. You actually feel like you have some relationship with them. A tree is no longer just a tree in the world that has nothing to do with you. It is a tree that you saw, labeled, and judged. By verbalizing it mentally, you brought that initial direct experience of the world into the realm of your thoughts. There it becomes integrated with your other thoughts, such as those making up your value system and historical experiences. Take a moment to examine the difference between your experience of the outside world and your interactions with the mental world. When you're just thinking, you're free to create whatever thoughts you want in your mind. And these thoughts are expressed through the voice. You are very accustomed to settling into the playground of the mind and creating and manipulating thoughts. This inner world is an alternative environment that is under your control. Think about that for a second. There's the outside world, which you have no control over. And then there's the internal world, which is narrating the outside world so you can do what? Feel like somehow you're in control of something that you have no control over. The outside world, listen to this. The outside world, however, marches to its own laws. When the voice narrates the outside world to you, those thoughts are now side by side in parity with all your other thoughts. All these thoughts intermix and actually influence your experience of the world around you. So your thoughts influence your experience of what's taking place. When you end up, what you end up experiencing is really a personal presentation of the world according to you. Stephen Covey said this: the map is not the territory. What you end up experiencing is really a personal presentation of the world according to you, rather than the stark, unfiltered experience of what is really out there. This mental manipulation of the outer experience allows you to buffer reality as it comes in. For example, there are myriad things that you see at any given moment, yet you only narrate a few of them. The ones you discuss in your mind are the ones that matter to you. With this subtle form of pre-processing, you manage to control the experience of reality so that it all fits together inside your mind. Your consciousness is actually experiencing your mental model of reality, not reality itself. So again, what we experience as we go through life is our interpretation of what's going on, not what's actually going on. Why is this so important? Because your first step, if you want to become more effective in terms of your ability to apply emotional intelligence and tactical empathy, you have to separate out your interpretation, your narration, your emotional reaction to whatever is taking place. You got to separate out the emotion from the situation and just deal with the actual situation. For example, asking for 6%. If you take your emotion out of that conversation, is that a difficult conversation?
No.
Buyer broker agreement. If we take your emotion out of that conversation, is that a difficult conversation?
No.
Pricing. If we take your emotion out of that conversation, is it a difficult conversation? No.
No.
None of these conversations are hard when we're able to separate out our emotion. You have to watch this very carefully because you do it all the time. And listen to this closely. You're walking outside in the winter. You start to shiver, and the voice says, "It's cold." Now, how did that help you? You already knew it was cold. You're the one who's experiencing the cold. Why is the voice telling you it's cold? You recreate the world within your mind because you can control your mind, whereas you cannot control the world. That is why you mentally talk about it. If you can't get the world the way you like it, you internally verbalize it, judge it, complain about it, and then decide what to do about it. This was part of the discussion we were having last night at 5:30. How many of you are determined and committed to getting the world to bend to your wishes? How many of you do that every day? Denise, raise your hand. How many of you are working hard every day to get the world to bend to your wishes? Anyone? I tell all of you, take a close look at that.
Yes, truth be told.
All right. If you can't get the world the way you like, if you can't get the world the way you like it, you internally verbalize it, judge it, complain about it, and then decide what to do about it. This makes you feel more empowered. When your body experiences cold, there may be nothing you can do to affect the temperature. But when your mind verbalizes it's cold, you can say, "We're almost home. Just a few more minutes." Now you feel better. In the thought world, there's always something you can do to control the experience. Basically, you recreate the outside world inside yourself, and then you live in your mind. What if you decided not to do this? If you decide not to narrate and instead just consciously observe the world. How many of you are dealing with a buyer or seller right now that's not doing what you want them to do? Anyone? Do you have a narration taking place that's
Yeah.
trying to manipulate the situation. Absolutely. So, what if you decided not to do this? If you decide not to narrate and instead just consciously observe the world, you will feel more open and exposed. This is because you really don't know what will happen next. Again, this narration is doing what?
It's limiting what you're
Distracting
seeing.
you?
This narration is your attempt to create certainty rather than walk into what? Uncertainty.
unknown.
Be able to walk into the unknown. This is because you really don't know what will happen next, and your mind is accustomed to helping you. It does this by processing your current experiences in a way that makes them fit with your views of the past and visions of the future. All of this helps to create a semblance of control because we all want to be in control. If your mind doesn't do this, you simply become too uncomfortable. Reality is just too real for most of us. So we temper it with the mind. You will come to see that the mind talks all the time because you gave it a job to do. You use it as a protection mechanism, a form of defense. Ultimately, it makes you feel more secure. As long as that's what you want, you will be forced to constantly use your mind to buffer yourself from life instead of living it. As long as you want to feel safe and protected, you're going to use your mind to buffer you from what is actually taking place. The world is unfolding. Listen to this. The world is unfolding and really has very little to do with you and your thoughts. What's taking place in this world has very little to do with you and your thoughts. The world was here long before you came, and it will be here long after you leave. In the name of attempting to hold the world together, what you're really doing is just trying to hold yourself together. True personal growth is about transcending the part of you that is not okay and needs protection. So again, every time you're asking for 6, every time you're asking someone to sign a buyer broker agreement, every time you're talking about price, every quote unquote hard conversation, you grow by letting things be and dealing with what is, rather than trying to control it in your mind. True personal growth is about transcending the part of you that is not okay and needs protection. This is done constantly. This is done by constantly remembering that you are the one inside that notices the voices talking. That is the way out. The one inside you who is aware that you are always talking to yourself about yourself is always silent. It is a doorway to the depths of your being. To be aware that you are watching the voice talk is to stand on the threshold of a fantastic inner journey. If used properly, the same mental voice that has been a source of worry, distraction, and general neurosis can become the launching ground for a true spiritual awakening. Come to know the one who watches the voice, and you will come to know one of the great mysteries of creation. So, again, get clear. Are you trying to bend the world to comply with your wishes? Is that what you're doing every day? Or are you just working to see what is and respond with emotional intelligence and tactical empathy? Acceptance versus resistance, love versus judgment. Become aware of that voice. Understand what that voice is. And most importantly, come to understand who is listening to the voice. Any thoughts, anyone?
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
It feels like this is sort of runs counter to kind of the concept of, like, quote unquote law of attraction. Like, I'm thinking, my thoughts have impact on the world. Do you feel that as well, or is it sort of a just a different approach to it?
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. When you're trying to use your thoughts to get what you want, you're trying to get the world to bend towards your wishes. That's exactly what you're trying to do. And the whole idea here that all he's really saying in this entire book is open your heart and come from a place of love all the time, period. That's it. Let the world be whatever it's going to be, because why?
You can't change it.
Exactly, because the world is going to be whatever it's going to be, period. No matter what you're thinking. All your thoughts do. All your thoughts are just an attempt to change the experience of what is actually happening. And think about this when you're with any buyer or seller. What are you doing the entire time when you're with a buyer or seller? What are you doing every time you're with a buyer or seller?
Trying to get them to see what's happening the way you see it.
You're trying to get them to do what you want them to do, period. And you interpret everything that they're saying and doing, you interpret it in a personal way, in terms of how it impacts what you want to have happen. Again, if you separate out your emotions from the situation, and think of it, any buyer or seller that you're currently working with, if you take your emotions out and just focus on the situation, do things get clearer or do things get more confusing?
Clearer.
They get infinitely more clear.
Is love an emotion?
I would say yes.
So separate all the emotions except for love, I guess.
Well, what love, think about love for a second. Love is infinite, correct? Love knows no boundaries. True love.
It's unconditional.
Right.
I think it's
True
a state
love,
of being too.
right.
Yeah.
True love.
Love is an essence, not
Right.
a emotion, I would say.
Well, let's, the bottom line,
Semantics.
hold on. What he's saying in this book is coming from a place of love is coming from a place of God. It's you being your godlike self. That's what love is. And love transcends every situation. And and start paying attention to whether your heart is open or your heart is closed during the day.
May I ask something?
Yeah, hold on one second. Anyone get in a fight last night with anyone in their family? Yay, nay? Okay.
Yay.
That's your heart doing what? Closing down. And if you step back and you look at that situation and go, okay, what if I had kept my heart open? What would have happened differently? And you begin to become aware of, all right, what happens when your heart is open all the time? What happens when your love is unconditional all the time? Go ahead, Danielle.
So I don't know that there's an answer to this, but one thing that's just really hard about all this in our particular business is, we're not, our product is literally our personality. It's not like, oh, they liked this book and then the next book they hated. And I'm sure that feels like your baby too. But this is literally like, oh, this person likes someone else better than me, or this person likes me better. And we're learning to detach from that, but it's hard. Even just the language of being the favorite, it's so personal. And so it's that real contrast with the goal of separating ourselves to not be defined by other people's, opinion of us. But that can be just hard, just saying that, acknowledging that. Unless it's only hard for me. But.
Well, no, now say it again.
Well, like we are the presentation, and it's our personality that they either like or they don't like, that either matches their mix of their cocktail of what they're looking for or doesn't.
Right, but I think
How do you not take that personally?
Okay. If you're showing up coming from a place of unconditional love, does it matter what they think or not?
Well, that's the work. I'm just saying it's hard work. It's not
Oh,
that
yeah,
easy.
that's being enlightened. That's the hardest work in the world, without question. However, at least you have an idea, a clear idea of where you want to get to, right? The idea, I don't think it's impossible for anyone to imagine coming from a place of love in all situations. I'm not saying that's easy to do. However, it's not, to me anyway, at least I can understand what that would look like. I may fall short of the mark. However, at least I know how I want to be, what I want to, how I want to grow. That's what it does for me. It clearly defines who I want to be or how I want to show up every day of life. And I can see when I'm doing it, and I can see when I'm not doing it. And with buyers and sellers, again, if you think about this, am I trying to get them to do what I want them to do? Or am I open to seeing what it is they want to do and why? And all I'm doing is responding with emotional intelligence and tactical empathy. I'm not trying to manipulate the situation to my advantage. What I'm trying to do is see what is the situation. Specifically, is this a low probability opportunity or a high probability opportunity? Am I the favorite or am I the fool? And when we begin to see these things clearly, then everything becomes pretty simple. And the moment you start setting standards, the universe, it just happens magically. Those standards are going to get tested every day, almost instantly, almost instantly. And then all of you come face to face. Is this really my standard or not? Or is it only my standard where? In my head. Is it only a standard I have in my head? Or is it a real standard that applies to no matter what is happening?
Steve,
Do I
can you
really
talk about-
charge 6% all the time? Do I really get every buyer to sign a buyer broker agreement? Do I really only take a listing if it's priced where it needs to be? Do I only do business with people I want to do business with? Do I only do business during my work hours? Or do I do business all the time?
how can I be unconditionally loving and have those standards? I think that's where I get tripped up,
Why do you see a conflict?
because it seems like then I'm putting conditions like those are conditions in a way.
You
I
can
know
still
I'm
love-
wrong.
You can still lovingly say, we're not going to work together. Having unconditional love doesn't mean you're a doormat and you do what anyone says. Doesn't mean that at all. It just means if you walk away with love. If you turn down the opportunity, you do it in a loving way. It's just a different version of what? It's just a different version of what? Let them leave in a what?
Oh, a limousine.
Limousine.
That's all it is. Same thing.
Stephen, I think not like trying to force someone to work with you who you're probably not the right fit for them is showing a type of love to that person, saying, hey, look, I'm not going to drag you down this road because we're not the right fit.
No. It's
awesome.
knowing there are plenty of people where it's going to be the right fit. You're going to be the favorite, and it's choosing to only work with those people who view you as the favorite. And what you've done your whole career is you've built relationships based on trust and respect. And because you've put the work in every day, that enough opportunities are going to come to you that are the right opportunities. And you don't have to manipulate the world. You don't have to get the world to bend to your wishes.
Universe is going to
Steve.
test you because sometimes you're the fool with a repeat client.
Right.
Sometimes you're the fool with a close friend or a family member. But the
100%.
more you go down this path, the deeper the universe tests are going to be and the tougher.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You will be tested every day. And you will be tested until what?
Death.
Until it becomes second nature. That's how the test will go on until it becomes second nature.
Steve, isn't it a balance between love the self and love the other person?
Say it again.
Isn't it about a balance between love the self, love yourself, because you're also part of the function between the two people, and love the other person. Consequently, you cannot be a doormat.
Life, and he gets into it in this book. Life is a balance. The sweet spot of life that you're aiming for, not too much, not too little. Not too much, not too little. That's the sweet spot of life. Anyway, to be continued. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.